I talk about national divorce sometimes, you know that, about how we need to separate as a nation, how we're at least two different peoples now, and when you're two different peoples, you shouldn't live together, then you just fight all the time. And inevitably, when you suggest something crazy like that or radical, you get pushback, a lot of pushback. And most of the pushback I get is totally valid. If you're one of those people, I get it. That's quite a thing to say, right? Well, just break up the country, that's quite a thing to say. But let me tell you something. The pushback doesn't bother me. Actually, the support doesn't do anything for me either. You know why? Because it's inevitable. Doesn't matter whether you love it. Doesn't matter whether you hate it. Jesse, you suck. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. It's inevitable. Human beings migrate. This is the whole history of the world. This is not just America. Human beings will migrate for a variety of reasons, but always human beings will migrate because they don't want to live here for whatever reason, and they want to live here, so they will move. Human beings move. They will not live in any kind of a permanent way under a system that is hostile towards them and the things they want. That's not even an American thing. That's the whole history of the world. It's going to happen. It's already happening. It's happening right in front of us right now. Did you know that during COVID, 2 million Americans packed up and moved? 2 million of them. They didn't want to live under tyranny. While my kids were in school, mask-free, big neighborhood parties with their friends, walking through the grocery store, no mask on, I would have to take flights to New York City, and it would be like I landed in a zombie apocalypse. And people know, and they move. Also, beyond the tyranny you will experience in blue America going forward, and already have experienced, the crime. The crime's going to get worse. You know, that's the craziest thing. That's what I've tried to tell people, and they think maybe I'm being too over the top or too harsh. You know that as bad as crime is in places like LA and New York and Chicago and the major American cities right now, and as bad as it is, and it is bad, you know that it's not going to get better, right? You know it goes down from here. Jesse, that's not true. People will wake up. No. The people who are able to wake up, most of them in these cities, they've already moved. The people who are left, they don't wake up. They keep doing the same thing over and over and over. Well, I got to vote Democrat. Daddy voted Democrat every time. I'm going to play you something. You've seen this probably before, but I'm going to play it for you. And I want you, as you watch this, I want you to wrap your mind around this. The new mayor of Chicago, his name is Brandon Johnson. An absolute turn the jails open, pro-crime, anti-cop nutball. Chicago will be Juarez in a year. You think Chicago's been bad? It's about to get so much worse. But as you watch this video of Brandon Johnson, I want you to know, somebody, it wasn't me, but somebody overlaid the areas of Chicago who voted for Brandon Johnson versus the areas which have the highest number of crime. So these are the parts of Chicago that were the most ravaged by crime. And the parts of Chicago that were the most ravaged by crime ran to the polls and overwhelmingly voted for this person.
So if defunding the police isn't the answer, what do you plan to do with your resources? Is it less money or more money to police departments?
Well, it's more money towards the areas of needs, right? And as I mentioned before, you know, we're working to double the amount of young people that we hire, not just for summer jobs, but for year-round positions. One of the things that I think is actually quite fascinating about our position here in Chicago, we've been pushing this ordinance called treatment, not trauma. In essence, first responders, social workers, counselors, EMT, these individuals would show up to calls that require those type of interventions. In fact, in Chicago, almost 40% of the 911 calls are mental health crises. We're asking police officers to do their job and someone else's.
People are going to move. They won't live there forever. And Chicago will turn into hell. And look, it goes beyond COVID stuff. It goes beyond crime. What are your values when it comes to life, the life of a child? If you're somebody who believes in pro-life, believes that life is a precious God-breathed thing who has every right to be born, how long are you really going to live in New York and California?
This isn't just an attack on abortion, it's an attack on democracy. Once again, states have become the battleground on these fights. We'll always protect access to reproductive health care and all individual rights here in New York.
What do you say to the women in these states, in Idaho and Florida and other states where additional restrictions past Dobbs are, governors are attempting to put them in place?
You can accuse me of many things, but not being inconsistent. Almost a year ago, I put up 20 billboards in 7 states, very specifically answering your question.
But now all these women who probably are encouraged by those billboards, they may not be able to afford to travel to California.
I know.
So what can you do? What do you tell them in terms of how you can fight for their rights and against this?
We've been putting up resources. We've been fundraising in that space. We're continuing to remind people that we have your back.
Where do you want to live? Do you know that since Roe v. Wade got overturned, just in 6 months, 32,000 fewer abortions were had in this country? No, not in California. In red states like Texas that are moving forward, banning this horrific procedure. Where do you want to live? Well, look, and even if you're saying, Jesse, I don't care, and that's fine. Look, you think about what you want. You have the values you want. You should understand that enough people do that this nation is separating. People are separating. We are at least 2 separate peoples, and we should be 2 separate peoples.
Support the First TV today and get instant access to exclusive specials like Who is Ron DeSantis, the history of FBI scandals, and America's worst presidents. Visit thefirsttv.com/support or download the First TV app to become a supporter and start watching today.